What does it mean to be a vulnerable Christian man? Walking through life weak and powerless is not what Jesus had in mind for us. It's time to fight. It's time to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We are Obi, Sean, Brandon, and Shane, and this is The Uncomfortable. Hello, and welcome back to The Uncomfortable Truth. Guys, let's get a little bit uncomfortable today. When's the last time you cried?
Within the last 3 days.
And it can be like a dribble of a tear or like full on tears.
100% in the last 10 days.
Okay, all right.
Probably the last 3 to 5.
Okay.
Now, cried and like sobbed or
Yeah,
just
no,
teared up?
Just teared up. Teared up. Maybe a tear came out.
Yeah, I'd say
I'm going a tear.
Last 24 hours.
Okay. The last time I cried was this morning at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got us all beat.
Oh, my gosh, man. Well, the reason I'm asking y'all last time you cried because I felt like an idiot laying there in bed watching this new show on Netflix called I Could Not Sleep Last Night. I took a nap yesterday, messed me up. There's this, it's not a stupid show. It's called Instant Dream Home.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
No.
You cried to Instant Dream
I
Home.
did.
Somebody got their dream home, and you were so excited.
So
for
listen
them.
to this. There's these people who need a house, and this is the whole premise of the show. It's based in Atlanta. And the people that are doing the dream home get with one person in the house to get the people out, right? It was a good story of people who needed it, but they redo this whole home in 12 hours. I'm not talking about just putting some paint on.
Gee, there must have been 100 people on site.
There's a bunch of people and 3 months of planning, I think, go into each property that they do. They take walls out and have kitchens pre-built and slide them in through walls that they've cut out, put walls back in, build new walls, paint the whole outside, redo the entire front and backyard landscaping.
Wow.
So I got a question. So did that part potentially make you emotional because of how inefficiently we remodel houses so far?
That probably should have been the reason that I cried. No, it was the reaction of the people when they came back up because
I
it was
get
such a touching, think of that. You leave your house and it's in pretty rough shape.
That's
and you
amazing.
come back and it's like
the very next day.
No, the same day. They leave at 6. They left at 6:45 and got back around 7 that night, and it was done.
Wow.
Okay.
That's wild.
It's kind of the only thing I
It's
can
almost
compare
like
it to
magic.
is like if you leave your house and it's a disaster inside
Somebody
and
cleans it.
somebody cleans it.
Yeah.
How refreshing that is. So imagine if your whole house. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, like,
Okay.
So
cried.
they
Not
were,
like
they
sobbing
were
like a little
emotional,
baby.
And you
yeah,
obviously
I got emotional. Yeah, I was also emotional that I was like, "Why am I still doing awake?
Oh man, that's awful.
Go to sleep."
Yeah.
You know those nights where you keep drifting and then you wake up.
It's weird, man.
Yes, I do.
Unfortunately, I know I'm looking at you because I know that you know.
Obi has lots of experience with that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So, to our viewers,
Hello,
you've got 4 grown men
who've cried in the last week.
who have all cried in the last 7 days.
Hey, that's being vulnerable right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have a running joke in my house, and since Leah and I first started dating, if anything is on that's semi-emotional, Shane and I just flew with Courtney and Leah to the Virgin Islands, and she told me, if you watch that movie on this plane, you're going to be crying in front of these hundreds of people. And she was right. I did not boohoo, but I was, tears, wanting to creep out. So,
Wow. Hey, I'm kind of like that too. I'm
Kinda getting
I'm an
comfortable
emotional
with it.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm usually not.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in certain situations.
I will say this. So you guys know I worked with a bunch of ladies for a long time as a middle school principal. And the only thing that would really, really affect me, not in a good way as a leader of the campus, is when a man would come in a moment when he should have been taking care of business and start crying. To me, that is not when I'm okay with a man crying. I'm like, you have completely lost all respect for me because you were crying because you didn't do what you were supposed to. That's different than crying because your heartstrings have been pulled off.
Right.
You care about a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to go, man. I don't know what to do with this.
Did you treat? I'm sure you had women that came in that didn't take care of business. They cried too.
Didn't even bat an eye.
Did you treat them the same?
I treated them the same, that the crying was irrelevant.
Yeah.
But I embraced the fact that they were a female, and in my mind, it was more natural to cry in that moment, even if they had dropped the ball.
Right.
But with the guy, I'm like, this is not okay.
Right.
Like, you're crying and you suck at your job.
That's
I mean, that's the truth. That's just like, I mean,
Okay, that's it. We're calling Brandon in to fire all employees from here on out.
There's a reason I'm no longer in that position either. So let's just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Hold on, you're crying and you suck at your job.
I'm trying to get this right.
There's the door.
I'm just trying to get this
That
straight.
sounded harsh, but
Man.
it was rare for a man to do that. They would normally come in and go, I'm terrible at what I didn't handle business, and they wouldn't cry. I'm like, okay. But if you're terrible and you're
owning it.
crying, I'm like,
I cannot handle
I
this.
can't. It's like, am I getting punked? You know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
our
So,
intro
what-
detoured us.
Yeah,
so
no, that's
I guess the
totally
uncomfortable,
all right.
the uncomfortable truth is that we have emotions too.
yeah. So we're gonna
Yes.
dive into some more emotions today.
Yeah.
Obi, you open us up in prayer, and then we'll
Sure
pick
will.
Sean apart.
Pick them apart. Lord Jesus, thank you so much for bringing us all here safely. We just thank you so much for this platform. Lord, we'd love to watch it grow because we know that every ounce of growth is because of you. It's in your timing, and it is all for you and for your glory. Lord, I just thank you for each one of these men here. I thank you that I can get vulnerable with them, that hold me accountable, and I thank you for these relationships. I pray you'll be with this podcast today. Just help it to reach someone, to plant a seed in someone. And we love you so much and ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. So Sean and Obi have both experienced something that Brandon and I have not experienced, and that is dropping your kid off somewhere that you are leaving them, say school. For Sean, it was yesterday for school, for college. Obi has done this for dropping a kid off, going to the military. But it's super fresh for you, Sean, and there's a lot of questions and thoughts that run through my head of how that feels, what is going through your head. Kind of walk us through that process and what your thought process is when you drop that kid off and you leave, or before you drop your kid off. You had a 7-hour drive, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's going through your
Well,
head?
so on the 7-hour drive on the way there, so I'm wearing my tech hat in honor of dropping off my child. And Texas Tech is where she's going to school. And on the 7-hour drive there, I'm following mom and daughter, in the car. And so I'm by myself for 7 hours.
Okay.
You're all with your emotions. So.
Yeah. And all this stuff's going through your head, I mean, I believe more than anything is, did I prepare my child to make wise decisions in the face of adversity, in the face of, these decisions that and I'm pretty raw. I'm pretty raw when it comes to getting real with my kid. Hey, when you're at college, people are going to offer you drugs. Guys are going to come at you before they find out you have a boyfriend, and they're going to proposition you. They're going to ask you out on dates. I try to get real with them. I don't want to sugarcoat it and not prepare them, not have them prepared. I'm also pretty paranoid whenever it comes to situational awareness. Hey, I don't want my kid pulling up to a dark alley and parking their car and then walking around the corner. And I'm like, listen, if somebody ever and this just popped into my head. So I had a friend who recently he was in New Mexico, and him and his family got bumped on a dark highway by another car. And the car came out of nowhere, bumped him, and he thinks that they were trying to get him to pull over. He was smart enough to recognize what was going on and went to a gas station, and the car sped off.
Okay.
He had his entire family with him. And so I want her to be aware of these situations. I want her to be mindful of there's evil present in this world, and I think for me, from a spiritual standpoint, did I did I arm my child with enough knowledge to know what to do, in the face of adversity, in the face of being integrity, and what would God do in this situation? Everybody has, remembers the WWJD bracelets. I want my child to make the smartest decision for her, in all these real life situations where I'm not going to be anywhere around. I can't shelter her innocence anymore. I can't make these decisions for her. And I think for me, that is hands down the thing that, is at the top of my mind. I'm like, gosh, man, I just hope and pray. And then, and of course I'm going over all these things with her, and as soon as I'm like,
you're like,
listen.
hey, are you writing this down?
Yeah.
Like while I'm talking to you, please grab a notebook.
No doubt, man. And, and she's a beautiful girl. And I think for me, it's like where you're parking every day is important,
Is she I gotta know this. Is she looking at you like, okay, Dad, like she's really taking it in and making you feel good, or
she's
or
like,
she doing?
Well, I think she's more like, Dad, you've told me this 1,000 times.
That's what I was wondering if she's like, dude, if you say this one more time.
You're consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's heard this before.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this wasn't the last minute tell
All
all. Right. Yeah.
I want to get even more behind the scenes. You're driving down the road for 7 hours.
Uh-huh.
That's a long time.
It is.
Okay. Are you just in your thoughts? Are you talking to the Lord? Are you listening to a podcast? Are you on the phone? Are you just completely numb?
Yeah.
I'm really just curious.
I think it was kind of all of those emotions in one.
Okay.
Of course I'm getting a phone call,
Right.
and taking a phone call and working on business stuff,
Right.
along the way. But then I'm like, okay, I'm throwing in a podcast, and listening to that too. And then of course I'm praying, God just, praying for my daughter. I did that as well.
Did you sleep the night before?
I didn't sleep very good the night before.
Okay.
No, I really didn't. All in all, I think I mentally prepared myself going into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't like an emotional wreck, My wife was.
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah.
What about your wife?
Yeah, my wife, every time she had the thought of Lexi's gone, she's not here anymore. And I'm like, babe, it's not like she didn't die, babe. I mean, like, she's here. She's just 7 hours away.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we, I don't know, man.
Did y'all come back in the same day?
No.
Okay,
Heck
I was
no.
gonna say,
No,
my goodness.
we drove up there on Monday night,
Uh-huh.
and then we stayed in an Airbnb Monday night with Lexi.
Okay.
And then the next day, Kat was like, why don't you stay in the dorm? That way we're just right down the road if you need something. And anyway, and she was like, I don't know if I want to stay in my dorm by myself tonight. And I was like, all right, well, then come back and stay with us. She was like, no, I really need to stay in the dorm, and it was kind of
It was in those you're just seeing a few of the adult decisions kind of start to go over to her, and it's like that's always a very just an emotional trip.
Yeah.
Because like you can see your child making a decision that they don't want to make, but they know it's best for them.
Well
you,
said.
you got to make it.
Or they know they have to or need to.
Yeah.
Right. Almost combined.
So she stayed in the dorm the night before last. Was that the night before last? Yeah. So anyway, so then yesterday morning we went to say bye. And so she was getting ready to do some orientation stuff. And whenever we went to say bye, she was all fixed up and just looked beautiful. And we went, I gave her a hug, and I was good. And anyway, and then she gave her mom a hug, and whenever she did, her lips started quivering.
Oh, man.
And then I looked at Kat's eyes, and her eyes were just like,
oh, man.
and she was like, Mom, and while she was hugging her, she said, Mom, I really don't want to cry because I don't want to mess up on my makeup.
Mm-hmm.
I just, she was like, I really don't want to cry, but her lip was like, she was like on the verge. They were both on the verge of losing it. And I was like, if they start crying, I know I'm going to start crying.
Yep.
So I hope they don't start crying.
That's usually when you see the dad just turn and go get in the truck.
Man,
Yeah. And anyway, they held it together.
Okay.
They didn't start crying. So because of that, I didn't start crying. And I said, hey, I love you. Give us a call later.
Mhm.
And then we walked off, and then that was it. And I was good. Like I said, I was good. Like I was saying earlier, before we started recording, I was good the whole way home. And then whenever I walked in the door last night, I was like, man, my baby girl's gone. She's not here, you know. And then we have a 3-car garage, and London, my youngest daughter, doesn't drive yet. And anyway, so there's no car there, and I'm like, okay, I guess I can move the 4-wheeler and the golf cart over to it.
I got to put something there.
Yeah, you know, and you're just sitting there, and I'm like, and then you walk into a room, and there's nothing there, but and you're like, wow, you know, I mean, just her bed and all her stuff's gone. Anyway, it's just that really kind of hit me. You know, I was like, wow, dude. You know, I mean,
Makes me think about the movie Blindside with Sandra
Sandra
Bullock,
Bullock.
Yeah.
where right there at the end they're taking him to is it Ole Miss?
I think so.
I think it's Ole Miss, and you know, they like finish their goodbyes, and she just goes over and they can't find her. They don't see her anywhere, and she's sitting in the car with the windows rolled up, and she's got tears just streaming down her face, and she's just looking straight forward. And the Michael Orr, you know, who's like her son, her adopted son, he walks up and opens the door, and she's like, leave me alone, Michael. I need to be alone right now, Michael. You know, and she don't want to look at him because she knows when she looks at him that she's gonna break down. And then she finally looks at him, and he says, you didn't give me a proper hug, you know, and then she loses it and gets out and gives him the best hug ever. But that whole emotion, you know,
that's a great movie, by the way.
it is. It is. That whole scene just makes me. It's a very good depiction of what it's like, you know, when you're sending off, you know, your baby into the world.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's I actually wrote a devotional about it on Monday morning, just talking a little bit about that, and it just, you know, it's hard to accept that, you know, that your child, you know, who's a believer, is God's child first, and then your child second, you know, and it's almost like you have to allow them to spread their wings and fly, you know, and it's like, how do you gracefully do that? You know, and there's just, you know, it's a flood of emotions, and at the end of the day, you just have to give it to God.
It all goes back to faith, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to give it to God and just trust that He has my daughter in the palm of His hand, and trust that she's going to be okay. And you know, it's but yeah, as a mom or dad who wants to control the situation, it's out of your control. And, you know, that's hard to accept sometimes as believers.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a reminder because it's so fresh for you. It's a reminder for me to make those moments count. I got a kid that's 13, the same age as your youngest. And, you know, those moments where she comes in and lays in the bed at night and just kind of wants to be around mom and dad, those aren't going to last forever. Those moments where we get to spend quality time with her doing whatever, and our other two that are younger, taking them to school. That's an opportunity with a captive audience where you can talk about real stuff. All those moments count, and it seems like those moments probably, you may think they count more when you're dropping them off at school, but they count now.
That's good. I heard this morning, I was listening to something about, well, shocker, time management, but it was biblically based, and it said, you know, the number one principle of everything that we should do in time management is in our walk with the Lord first. That should be the first time management practice in the Word, spending time with Him. And then the next thing he said, I was like, well, this is good. He said, God knows that we're a distracted person. I mean, we all are. You know, we're always chasing squirrels in our head or whatever. He said, but I'm going to relate it to my kid who's, I think he said 5 at the time. He said, every moment I have with my kid, I know 80% of those are just, they're not super impactful. They're just moments where we're together. You know, maybe she's telling me something that makes no sense and I'm laughing even though it's not funny. He said, but what I also know, just like God knows this with us, is that other 20% is where the most important moments happen.
Yeah.
When I'm really present, and that can occur because of the 80%.
Yeah, that's good.
And I was like, that's good.
You got to be present first.
Yeah. Exactly. It's really weird to me. Like you asked it earlier before we got started if I had, you know, a topic for the next podcast, and I've got some stuff I wanted to talk about, but you're talking about time management. And so, I mean, God's definitely orchestrating what I was really wanting to talk about right now.
That's awesome. Let's go.
So it's really crazy because this book by Mark Batterson, it's called Win the Day. It might be my favorite book in the world. I've read it probably 3 times, and if I don't,
Daggum overachiever. Not only do you read a book once, then you read it again.
He's that guy.
man,
and again.
If every page has something that I could like tell somebody and make their day better, I want to read every page 3 times. You know,
you mark it up.
I do sometimes, and sometimes I don't. And if I don't have a pen or a highlighter close, I'm not going to get up and go get one. Even though I really should, because I forget a lot of what I wish I would have remembered.
Right, we all do.
So, but, you know, he talks about in this book, you know, about how the ancient Greeks had 2 words for time. And chronos, which is the first word, is for like chronological. You know, it measures, it's the calendar basically. You know, it measures days, weeks, months, years, you know, in chronology. And then kairos, Kairos, is another word. And he says they're 2 sides of the same coin, but they're as different as heads and tails. And, you know, like I said, chronos is super important because again, it's our actual clock. You know, it's measuring time, and again, we've always heard if we can't manage our calendar will manage us. You know, it's super important to understand how to manage that time. Otherwise, you're never going to get anything accomplished. You're really going to struggle to be productive. But he talks about how kairos is so much more important in life than chronos. And I think that a lot of us get that backwards, you know, and kairos is making the most of every opportunity. It's the 6th sense that perceives the prompting of the Holy Spirit. Kairos doesn't keep time as much as it makes time. So when it discerns a holy moment, it takes off its shoe. It says here, you were talking about distractions, and he says here, winding the clock is recognizing every moment for what it is, a gift from God. The challenge, of course, is that we are easily distracted. And he talks about the movie Up, you know, where the dog, you know, if you say squirrel, he's like, it doesn't matter what's going on. Exactly. And he basically is just saying that that everything about our lives, the most important aspects of our lives, are measured through time, but kairos is so much more important than the time on the clock or anything that you might have planned throughout the day, making the most of every moment. And that was kind of what I wanted to talk about, because you're right. I mean, if we're not making the most of every single moment that we have, taking the kids to school, you know, whatever those moments are, and we aren't like creating those moments and being intentional about those, we're missing the boat. You know, completely missing the boat.
I watch a guy on YouTube, Facebook, whatever his name's, Alex Hermosi, and really successful financially successful guy. I don't know where his faith lies, but he says the most you know, you'll hear that your most important resource is time. And he says, not really. Your most important resource is attention, the attention
Ooh.
of your time.
Huh.
And it goes back to what you just said there is like, if we just blindly walk around distracted all the time, what is our time worth? It's not worth anything.
Mm-mm.
I mean, that's where the devil wants us. He wants us blindly distracted, walking around, not
Drifting.
making a difference, drifting just one moment to the next until it's gone and not having any impact.
So let's give a practical example of that real quick. So let's just say, as a believer, we're walking down the street on our way to something that's important to us. Okay. And then we have a moment where there's someone in need. It might be someone homeless. It might be someone who's seems to be having a bad day. We may or may not know them. I think what we're all saying here is, if you're walking with the Spirit, in the Spirit, you recognize that that thing that is time-oriented is not much as this thing that's eternally oriented.
Yeah.
And I think recognizing the difference between on this earth and eternal are two very different things. With our kids, what I take away from everything Sean just shared is, how often am I capitalizing and intentionally thinking eternally with my kids?
Sure. You know, at the end of the day, when you think about your kids, they're your greatest legacy.
100%.
And, you know, so I think it's so important that we're being a good parent, because they're, when we're dead and gone, they're the only ones who can tell their, you know, their kids and their kids' kids about, you know, hey, look, your grandpa or your dad, or, you know, I mean, you want to make an eternal impact. So I love that.
Well, I think that it makes me think about our sinful nature. We commit sins of commission, and we have sins of omission. And our sins of commission, you know, it might be we committed the sin. It may be we committed the sin of lying, or and then a sin of omission is something that we were supposed to do, but we didn't do. And
Biblically, you mean, like what we're called to do as believers? Okay,
exactly.
I got you.
Yeah. So what we're called to do as believers. So like if we're called to, you know, pour into our kids, which we are, and we fail to do that, to me, that's a sin that you're going to regret much more than maybe a committed sin. And so, like, if I go back and I look at all the mistakes that I made, I'm not going to – I feel like that the mistakes that I made, that I committed, aren't going to be near as impactful to me in the long run as the mistakes that I made that I just failed to do. And so it's like, if I fail to pour into my children, or if I fail to do these, you know, these things that biblically I know I'm called to do, but I just chose not to do it, I feel like that's going to impact me, and obviously them, more so than just something, you know, that just a maybe a lie that I told, or you know, something along those lines. But I don't know. It just makes me think about that.
Here's where we, you know, I really miss the purpose sometimes, is that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
Right.
We're not. Our kids are not. Nobody on this earth is guaranteed tomorrow. But I don't live my life like that.
You don't live your life like it's your last day?
No.
Yeah.
And I don't live my life like it's my last day and I could make an impact on somebody for Jesus right now. Like, truly.
Like, this might be the last day I get to tell my kid this.
Yeah. What is the most important thing that I want to tell them?
Yeah.
Or that person that, you know, you just come across.
So, Sean, to tie this thing up in a bow, if you could go back and tell, you know, you've experienced more life than we have with kids, with leading them to the Lord or being around when they accept the Lord, what would you go back and tell yourself as a beginning parent?
Yeah, man, that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep.
Well, I'm not going to make it easy on you.
Yeah.
Because I want to know.
if I could go back over and just start from day one, I would probably tell myself to be more, I would tell myself to be more present with my children whenever I walk in that door every night. Yeah.
That's good.
That's I think that's important. And from I feel like that I've done a pretty good job with my kids.
Your kids are awesome.
Lord knows I've made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
So, but
We all have.
I mean, I'm certainly not perfect, but I feel like I've done a pretty good job of instilling Christ with and introducing him to my children, and really just helping them understand right from wrong. And but more than anything, I would just say being more present with my children, and third time's a charm. I still got a 13-year-old, so it's still a work in progress. So but yeah, that would kind of be my advice.
Good. It just dawned on me that having more kids is a blessing from the Lord, because each one I should get better at being
Get
present.
to sharpen up a little bit
Yeah,
on
I mean
each
that.
one.
That's
Absolutely.
like, poor Max, I look at him sometimes and I go, although
Sorry, bud.
yeah.
Like you had to learn the hard.
Yeah.
I had to learn the hard way through.
You were learning when I was learning.
What is
at-
the verse that talks about our kid? We lead the way. We lead our kids, and they'll come back to.
Yeah.
Raise up
Sure.
a child
Yeah, right.
in the ways of the Lord, and
Sure. Yeah.
I'm butchering that, but is that the one you're talking
It's
about?
the one I'm talking
Okay.
about. I think it's very
I think it may be
relative.
Psalms 22:6.
I always think about, like, I'm the oldest child, Obi's the youngest, and then we have a middle daughter, and
Middle sister.
Sister.
sorry,
Okay, that's like
middle daughter. Yeah,
I
middle
think we know
sister.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my daughter, and how I got the most spankings, and I was the figure it out child, and Obi was the most spoiled and got the least spankings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
think about that. I'm like, he's the golden child, and I was the black sheep.
Yeah. You forged the path. I get that, Sean.
So,
Thank you for
you're
your
wel-
sacrifice.
You're welcome, Obi. You're welcome, brother. I love you.
Send you a bouquet of flowers later. I think he needs a trophy. Hey, my wife, he messed with me if I ever do the dishes or something like that. It's a little bit out of the ordinary. So you need a trophy today?
He's been giving it back to me for about 15
Yeah.
or 20 years.
Yeah, he's been needing a trophy for a while.
He's been making it up.
So just, a little raw truth there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there's a lot of ongoing
Yeah.
older brother, younger brother things
Yeah.
between us all the time.
We had to put up with y'all's crap. Like, okay, so you guys, how many years are different?
7.
Yeah.
7.
Jeez.
You didn't have a chance, like in a fight.
Oh, no.
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 So he just had.
I can-
Still don't, dude. What do you mean?
Yeah. No. Okay, we're going there.
Oh,
Here we
boy.
go. We need arm wrestle right here on the table.
I can recall one good pop in the face from my whole life.
I remember that.
And it was just a mistake, and then I got killed.
Oh yeah. So Brandon's only 2 years older than me, and he just was so much stronger than me. My entire life, I would argue up until now we're more equal. Now he's probably still stronger than me, but there's about 3 times that stick out in my head. All the other times that I got the crap beat out of me, I've tried to forget. It was a sport for Brandon and his buddies when they were over at our house when he had his buddies over. They would hold me down in his room and shut the door and say, "See if you can get out." And then by the end of it, I'm sweating. I might be a little bloody. They hold me down doing, that thing on my
Chinese
chest,
tortoise.
Oh,
Oh,
spitting
That was
loogies in
a-
my face
that
and
was a-
sucking them up. Like, it's a wonder Brandon hadn't died by now, because I'm that guy that will.
Stab me.
You'll
in my
wait till
sleep.
he's asleep.
I'll cut your brake line,
I was
bro.
just about to say, cut your brake lines. I kid you not.
Slash your
you.
tires.
The reason that I became that is because that was my only retaliation.
Yeah.
One thing about Sean is he always he loved to jack with me. It never got too bad, but he was the only one who could jack with me.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
he
So-
like his buddies, it there would get to a point where it was like, okay, that's enough.
Hey, dude, that's enough.
Or if they went over the line, he absolutely like
It wasn't okay.
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't.
My brother didn't have that much honor.
No. Well, and
No,
we were
it's-
2 years difference
Like
too.
at school, if somebody was messing with me,
Yeah.
he would have stepped in. But at the house, it was all fair game.
I felt like it was my brotherly obligation to teach him things that he needed to know to be like me.
That is a mindset.
Did you?
That is like
you feel that?
I
it
Sean?
was just
listen.
it was a refining process.
It's like, hey, I am not you.
No, I know.
I think we knew that growing
Yeah.
up. I'm not anywhere close to you, but man, you made it your mission, didn't you?
Instead of us like taking those two
this took a turn.
completely,
This whole podcast took a turn.
yeah. This is
good
the
stuff.
uncomfortable truth.
Yeah. Hey, if you got older brothers or younger brothers, I'm sure that you guys experience or older sisters operate in a little bit different a manner. I would imagine.
They do.
Yeah, which we grew up kind of with.
Yeah.
A very close cousin who we would consider our sister, so we got a little bit of that. But anyway, we got derailed
Yep.
and chased a squirrel,
Don't forget
man.
to subscribe.
but it
Yeah.
was worth it.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being here. If you listen on, if you're just on Apple or Spotify or Pandora, I don't know if you know, but we are on YouTube as well. So if you want to check us out on there, we've got a lot of shorts and stuff, just clips, and our full episodes are on there as well. So if you haven't listened to us on Apple and it's easier for you to listen riding down the road, hop on there, try to make it as easy as possible. Help us reach more people for Jesus by liking, sharing, subscribing with others. And go out and kick the day in the face, and we'll catch you on the next one.